Time for the weekly back carry now. I will give it just a minute for some people to show up here. Our weekly back carry this week is a Ruck Tied in front, which is our beginner back carry. A Ruck Tied in front is the very first carry that you learn as a back carry, usually. It's not the most comfortable carry. It's very, very shoulder heavy, but being as it has only one spread pass and you immediately make the seat and then tie off the carry, it's great for learning those really foundational back carry techniques, making a seat, strand by strand tightening in the back, pinning the seat correctly. All of those things are really important to learn before you move on to multi-layered, multi-passed carries, because if you can't get a nice tight pass in your ruck, then any other carry is just going to cover up that slack and you're going to have sagging problems. So that's why we always teach a ruck as the very first back carry, unless there's some sort of specific mitigating circumstance that you can't physically tie a ruck for some reason. But it's generally, for most people, going to be the best first back carry. It's great for teeny tiny babies because it's high and tight and it puts baby's head right here by your face and by your ear so you can monitor their airway. It's the most lean-proof carry if it's well tightened with that top rail. Doesn't have the best seat protection, but if the seat gets popped, it just turns into a strap carry. So it's not going to be a catastrophic fail if your kid does pop the seat in a ruck. All right, so this is between a base -2 and a base -3 for me, so I'm just going to barely be able to tie off in the front here. But you start the middle marker right in the middle of your baby or demo doll's back, and then get them onto your back with the method you prefer. I like to use a Superman toss for a ruck because it's so high. If you try and hip scoot, then you have to hike everything up super high. So one important thing to remember is when a ruck, you want to pin your top rails so baby's shoulders are even with your shoulders. If you pin baby way up here, what's going on, guys? Alan, if you can't be nice to your brother, you need to move everything into his room so he will stay in there. Be kind. If you pin baby with their shoulders way up high above yours like this, and it's a little tiny baby, you won't be able to reach the seat. So pin them with their shoulders even with yours. Then you're going to pull down all of the width before lifting baby's knees into the correct position. Alan? Alan? Move him into his bedroom. And then he'll leave you alone. Okay. Any tips for helping an arms out baby to get their arms above the top rail? If the baby is old enough, I usually say put your arms out like an airplane, and then I move the rail like this, and then tuck it under their arm. If they're not, you kind of have to like use one hand to hold the rails and use the other hand to pull their arms gently out, and then position your top rail. But usually I just say make airplane arms, and then I move each rail down, out, and under the arm on each side, like that. This demo doll doesn't have arms, so. Okay, so then as you pull the fabric down, then you're gonna reach under baby's legs, and you're gonna use your fingers to hook under the very bottom rail and lift. So you're pulling the rail into, I'm gonna pin this right here, don't do this with a real kid. You're gonna hook your fingers like this and pull up and out, so the bottom rail gets pulled into a straight line between baby's knees. Like that. If the baby can pull their own arms out, it's safe for them to have their arms out. Most babies start doing it between probably 5 and 6 months. Some kids are content to stay arms in for much, much longer. But yeah, if they can work their arms in and out by themselves, they can leave them out. Okay, so then we're gonna hold the baby's knees in the position that we lifted them into with one arm. And then we're gonna lift the top rails up on each side to secure the bottom seat in place. So I've lifted the bottom rails, but I haven't tightened anything. So if I just let go, the entire thing will fall back down again if I'm not holding on to it. So keep your arm there until you have tightened through and secured that bottom rail. If you have a baby that likes to bounce and kick, leave your arm there while you're tightening and just tighten using one hand. If your baby is compliant and you are standing up straight, if you lean like this and let go, your kid is gonna either arch their back and try and sit up, which will cause them to straighten their legs and kick like a donkey like this, or they're gonna kick their legs straight out like a Superman. It's a reflex. So if you're not standing up straight, don't take your arm off of the seat. Your kid will kick it out in a reflex action. It doesn't mean that they're a wiggly baby. It means that they're performing a normal anatomical human reflex. So if you have a kid that wiggles, you can continue by leaving your arm here and doing your strand by strand tightening. If you have a compliant baby that doesn't wiggle, you can let go after you're standing up straight and do two-handed strand by strand tightening. I'll show it both ways. So if you have a wiggler, strand by strand tighten like this. Holding the knee with one hand in the correct position and tightening with one hand. And when you tighten, tighten up, not this way. If you tighten down, you're going around a corner. So tighten upwards in the direction that the wrap is moving. Then, you can place your bunched pass by feeling for baby's knee and passing the wrap to yourself so it goes right over baby's knee pit. You don't want to pin it below their knee because that'll just trap their calf and can potentially compress a vein or an artery right there and mess with circulation. So go right into the pit of where their knee bends. So you just pass it to yourself there and then bring it around in the front and pin while moving your hand to protect the seat on the other side. And then you can continue the same way. Again, if you have a compliant baby that doesn't kick the seat out, even my demo doll is not compliant and has popped the seat here. There's the knee. Okay, if you have a compliant doll or a compliant child that doesn't bounce or kick, you can do your strand by strand tightening with 2 hands like this. So pull with 1 hand, up and out, and then pass it to the other hand. And you can do it much more neatly this way with your tightening, up and over your shoulder. And then you can arrange your pass like this as you're sliding your hand down before you place the bunched pass. But if you have a wiggly baby, just leave your arm here, holding and securing the seat while you're strand by strand tighten with just the 1 hand. Then, same thing, we're gonna reach, find baby's knee pit, and bring the bunched pass down and over, and pass it to yourself right in that knee pit there, so you're not cutting off circulation or compressing anything over the first leg, under the second leg, just like that. Another thing to keep in mind when you are doing your strand by strand tightening over your shoulder is tighten with your shoulder in the natural position. If you tighten with your shoulder up by your ear, and then you bring it down, and then you drop your shoulder, you're gonna have a whole bunch of bottom rail slack that wasn't there because your shoulder was up here, and then you brought it down. So, keep your shoulder and your entire body in the natural position that it should be while you're doing your tightening. You're not tightening the wrap to move things into place. You're moving the child and yourself into place and then tightening around the position of your body. If you wrap your entire carry hunched over and then you tie off and then you stand up, you're gonna create slack all over down here that wasn't there before because of the way your body was moving the wrap. So tighten with the posture you want to end up in. Then, after you place both of your bunched passes, before you tie off, if you're just tying in front, hold the passes out to the side like this, right near baby's knee. Give a gentle bounce and pull straight out to snug up the entire carry. You see everything just moved. So what that does is it pulls the passes, if they're placed correctly, right up into the pits of baby's knees and right up over the bottom rail here to pin that seat down. And it's like pulling a belt tight on a jacket or a robe. It just snugs up the entire carry, and then it won't sag if there was any slack that you missed. But don't do that until you've done your strand by strand tightening. Otherwise it doesn't help anything. Then tie off with your double knot, and you're all good for a ruck tied in front. Posture is a really, really common mistake. Keeping your shoulder up here while you're strand by strand tightening and then dropping it as you place your pass, very, very common mistake. That's why people will end up with several inches of bottom rail slack here that they can't figure out where it came from. You have to be very aware of your own body just as much as the position of your baby's body while you're wrapping, especially when you're learning to back wrap at first. Otherwise you create habits where you're wrapping either bent like this and then you stand up and the entire carry settles and pulls back on your shoulders, or you wrap with your back arched like this and then you stand up here straight and you create slack down here where baby was arched into your back and then they're not anymore, or it pulls up here for that reason. Again, I see a lot of people tightening and wrapping with their shoulders up by their ears, and then they place everything and then they go like this and the entire carry goes phew. Even I make that mistake sometimes. So you just have to be really aware of your posture and where your body is while you're wrapping. You want to wrap in the posture that you normally walk around with. Otherwise you're going to end up with weird sore places, digging, weird slack in the bottom rail, all sorts of stuff can happen there. Okay. You have trouble tucking the fabric up for the seat. So when you're making the seat, it's not a tucking up. It's a lifting of the bottom rail and lifting of baby's knees at the same time. Like this, lift out. You're pulling the bottom rail into a straight line from knee to knee. I showed that earlier, so go back and watch the video again when I'm first making the seat, and it shows that motion. It's like lifting a hammock into place. If you pull up and then out, you're creating a straight line from knee to knee, and then you put your arm across there, and then you lift the bottom rail into place on each side, and that tightens the bottom rail so you can do the rest of your strand by strand tightening and baby's knees are positioned correctly. Remember, you're not pulling baby into position with the fabric, you're moving baby into position and then tightening the fabric around the position that you want them to hold while they are on you. All right, I'm going to stop this video and then I'm going to do the front back ruck tandem, and that will help with our new tandem wrappers if they have babies that are old enough to be back and front. So if you have any more questions or you're watching this after the fact, put them in the comments and I'll answer them when I'm done with all 3 videos.